A Saga of Roobin, Chapter 1, The Emperor's Thoughts. Section 1, Strategic Expansion of the Cult of Roobin. Rank these. Morea versus Thessaloniki versus Laconia versus Corfu versus Crete versus Naxos versus Cyprus. Which one is better and which ones are worse? In terms of the susceptibility of the local populace to the allure of the cult of Roobin and their affinity towards conversion into the hallowed ranks of Roobinhood, which region would provide the highest ROI for a strategic expansion for the cult of Roobin to expand into next? Alternatively, another approach is to mobilize the Order of St. Roobin and the Knights of the Holy Roobin to wage a glorious crusade against the non-Roobining infidels. Wielding sacred relics such as the Divine Spear of Roobin and the Shield of Everlasting Roobiness, they will be unstoppable, plus their fervent adherence to the Holy Creed of Roobinism gives them unshakable morale. Post-conquest, the Office of Internal Roobin Affairs will reform the education system and set up theme classes throughout the newly annexed land to help indoctrinate the populace into the divine way of Roobinhood. The provisional provincial government of the Greek imperial province of the Great Roobin Empire will quickly get to work hiring the best linguists to work on adapting the sacred language of the Roobinic gods into Greek for easier realignment of their society to speak the one true language. Alternatively, another approach is to mobilize the Order of St. Roobin and the Knights of the Holy Roobin to wage a glorious crusade against the non-Roobining infidels. But we must enact military reform soon. For now, the fanaticism of the cult of Roobinhood ensures undying loyalty to the cause, but allowing independent military orders that don't answer directly to the state command in such large armies is a rebellion waiting to happen. So we must invoke the ancient rabbinic rights of Centralio Imperii to officially absorb these military orders into the Grand Imperial Roobin Military first as a semi-standardized auxiliary corps, and soon as fully standardized regulars, to be dispersed amongst the rest of the military to prevent a potentially powerful and disloyal bloc from forming from discontented former order members. Section 2. Governmental and Political Structure of the Roobin Empire. The holy peerage of the Roobin realm must also be reformed. Early founders should be honored and immortalized with noble titles, but nobility must be divorced from political authority to prevent decentralization and unrest. Important founders of the cult of Roobin are allowed to hold significant political power, but only via official positions in the imperial Roobin government ex officio rather than through their personal status as members of the nobility. For now, the People's Representative Federal Government of the Holy Roobin Empire is allowed to continue existing as a de jure independent governmental body under the Imperial Roobin Monarchy that serves as a technically lower-ranked but not strictly subservient parallel authority. It's fine because of their fervent devotion to the cult of Roobin, they will always align themselves with the cult. As the cult itself is constitutionally enshrined as perpetually the ruling class of the Roobin Empire, and the Grand Master of the cult is automatically enthroned as Emperor ex officio, this fervent devotion ensures Congress's alignment with the imperial throne. But trust in the tenacity of the hold that Roobin has on people's hearts and minds, while admirable, is not a sound basis for an empire that will last 10 billion Roobinhoods. So the representative government must be brought to heel and constitutionally placed as subservient to the imperial government, acting as a logistical and bureaucratic arm of the imperial government that leverages direct and representative democracy as a quick feedback loop and an easy way to align itself with the citizenry's interests. But all important decisions are made by the imperial government from above. It also acts as a supervisory and accountability body for the representative government as well, able to veto, override, and interfere in any way it desires, and reappoint or fire any politician as needed, wielding democracy as a tool within an absolutist monarchy, rather than using it as a way to give power to the people. It's market research, rather than diluted sovereignty. But a monarchy isn't strictly accurate either, as sovereignty is vested into the Holy Roobin rather than the monarch. But the monarch is the head of the Holy Church of Roobin, and as the head can consecrate a saint and designate them as the current earthly incarnation of the Holy Roobin. By tradition, the monarch always appoints themselves. So it's technically an absolutist theocracy with a democratic flavor as a means of convenience, kind of like Iran, but not corrupt. Section 3. Theocratic and Religious Reforms. The Church of Roobin is similar but separate from the cult of Roobin. The cult carries a more nationalistic and secular side to it, and is more akin to a vanguard party, except one that champions a religious ideology rather than an economic one. The Imperial Roobin Office of Inquisitorial Rectification and Societal Harmonious Realignment will be set up by mid-year 2025. It will begin the Great Holy Campaign of Roobinification that will ensure strict homogeneous conformity to the tenets of Roobinhood across the entire empire. Religious, cultural, linguistic, social, behavioral, values systems, etc., will all be strictly reformed by force. All will be assimilated into the ways of the Roobin. Mass proliferation of AI-powered monitoring drones will strictly enforce the call for prayer that occurs 5 times per hour during every waking hour, where every resident must praise the Holy Roobin by saying, Roobin. Those who flaunt this regulation will be warned, then sent through the representative government's legal system. But egregious abuses or repeat offenses will be sent to the courts of the Inquisition instead, where intensive and absolute psychological torture and reprogramming will be employed to ensure strict realignment to the cause. Once they're finally released back into the world, they will be the loudest ambassadors of Roobin ever. Unfortunately, certain ungrateful parts of the Empire resent all the gifts we have given them in our assimilation efforts. They hate that we want to show them what real civilization and culture look like, but their revolt will be brutally crushed. Section 4. Technological and Military Advancements. Via the latest developments in Holy Roobin weaponry, we now have technology that uses Roobin anti-Roobin collisions to generate massive amounts of Roobin energy that can obliterate entire continents with ease. Also, the smart Roobin bomb can sweep an entire country and kill off everyone who isn't a true believer. It utilizes brain scanning technology, AI agents, and also calls upon the divine spiritual powers of the Holy Roobin to distinguish what's truly hiding in one's hearts. Crypto non-Roobinists still technically exist, but they are a tiny minority. They are only allowed to exist so there's a fresh supply of people to make an example of. The Imperial Roobin Office of Expansion and Roobinific Destiny estimates that, even at a conservative rate, the total assimilation of Earth will complete by Q3 2026. So we can soon completely disband the Imperial Roobin Office of Foreign Affairs and the Imperial Roobin Stare Department, as well as the representative Federal Roobin Foreign and Diplomatic Agencies, saving us billions of Roobin bucks a year. Both metric and imperial units will be banned, and everyone will be forced to use standardized Roobin units. I'm driving at 30 Roobinists per Roobin hour and will get there at 40 Roobin PR. PR stands for post-Roobinoon. Roobinoon happens at midday every day. Roobinite happens at midnight. Section 5. Calendar Reformation and the New Roobin Era. The Gregorian calendar will be reformed to restart numbering, setting 2025 as the New Year Zero, as it is the year of the cult of Roobin's ascension. All years before will be reverse numbered and labeled with either BR, before Roobin, or DE, Dark Era, and all years after will be labeled by either AR, after Roobin, or RE, Roobin Era. The Emperor, Grand Master of the cult, and the Pope of the Church of Roobin are all the same person, and succession is chosen by the divine celestial spirit of the Holy Roobin. The Holy Roobin will speak unto all believers the name of the next successor. Chapter 2. Character Introduction. Section 1. Grand Counselor Edris Valen, Chief of Foreign Affairs of the Grand Imperial Roobin Cabinet. Subsection 1. Character Disposition. Edris Valen is a seasoned diplomat, having served the Roobin Empire for over 3 decades. Once a young idealist who fully embraced the Roobinification of the world, he has since tempered his enthusiasm with realism, understanding that absolute conformity is an impossible pursuit. He remains deeply loyal to the Emperor and the cult of Roobin, but has carved out a space for pragmatism in the foreign arena. His philosophy is that the Roobin Empire must be dominant, but adaptable. An empire that crushes all opposition will stand strong for a time, but an empire that learns to shape the world rather than merely subjugate it will stand for eternity. He believes that outright destruction of all non-Roobin forces is short-sighted, and that diplomatic, economic, and cultural subversion are weapons just as sharp as the divine spear of Roobin. Chapter 3. Response to the Emperor. Your Imperial Majesty, most holy and illustrious Roobin incarnate. It is always an honor to serve as the guiding hand of your vision beyond our borders. As always, I will speak plainly, as I know you value truth over flattery. The recent reforms and ongoing crusades of Roobinification are, by all measures, successes. The masses tremble before the righteous hand of the Holy Roobin, and our agents within the Imperial Office of Inquisitorial Rectification report widespread conversions. The Holy Peerage is aligning, and the people's representative federal government has been subdued into useful bureaucratic machinery. However, I must bring to your attention the risks of certain elements within our grand plan, foreseeable complications that, if unaddressed, may threaten the long-term stability of our dominion. Firstly, on the matter of absolute assimilation. The forceful Roobinification of all territories has undoubtedly ensured compliance, but history teaches us that oppression alone cannot secure loyalty for generations. The psychological reprogramming and mandatory AI-enforced prayer have indeed forged zealous converts, but we are breeding generations of subjects who obey out of fear rather than devotion. Fear is an excellent short-term tool, but over time, it hollows out the soul of an empire. It is only a matter of time before factions arise, seeking to overthrow what they view as imposed tyranny rather than holy enlightenment. Might I suggest a slow integration of cultural Roobinhood, allowing territories to develop their own sanctioned interpretations of Roobinism? This would create the illusion of autonomy while keeping their faith loyal to the throne. Let them believe they are choosing Roobinhood, not merely submitting to it. Secondly, on the expansion of military influence, the consolidation of the Order of Saint Roobin and the Knights of the Holy Roobin into the Grand Imperial Roobin military is an important step in preventing rebellion, but it is not without risk. Independent military orders foster zealotry, yes, but they also function as ideological counterbalances within the empire. The moment all warriors swear fealty solely to the Imperial High Command, the only force left to challenge the throne will be from within the military itself. Historically, a standing army with no external enemy quickly turns inward. The last thing we need is a new faction within our own ranks, no matter how Roobin loyal they claim to be. I advise keeping military orders semi-autonomous, ensuring their continued dependence on the Emperor's favor, rather than merging them into a single force that might one day see itself as the Empire's true backbone. On the international front, I must also caution against our growing reliance on Roobin energy weaponry. The Holy Roobin Bomb and the Roobin Chalk Anti-Roobin Annihilation Project are unparalleled marvels, but they create a troubling strategic conundrum. With the capacity to erase entire populations in moments, we run the risk of removing the very subjects we seek to convert. Worse still, our enemies, what few remain, are watching. The last of the non-Roobin powers, fractured and feeble though they are, may yet unify under a single banner if they believe they are fighting for their survival, rather than resisting mere conquest. Desperate enemies make reckless decisions. Our overwhelming might has left us unmatched, but it has also made us predictable. We may yet benefit from leaving certain enemies alive, as controlled opposition, to avoid giving the world a singular force to rally against. Lastly, on the matter of governance, the abolition of the metric and imperial systems in favor of standardized Roobin units has, without question, strengthened our cultural hegemony. However, logistics officers have expressed concerns that some annexed territories are struggling to adapt quickly enough, leading to slowdowns in production and inefficiencies in long-term economic planning. The transition must be carefully managed if we are to maintain optimal productivity. Your Imperial Majesty, I do not question the divine mandate of Roobinhood, nor do I waver in my loyalty to the cause. But in all things, a flame must be carefully tended lest it burn out of control. We stand at the precipice of eternal dominion, but let us not let hubris be our downfall. I urge you to consider these matters carefully. The cult of Roobin shall be absolute, but let us ensure that its reign is not merely mighty, but everlasting. Your faithful servant, Grand Counselor Edris Valen, Chief of Foreign Affairs, Grand Imperial Roobin Cabinet. Chapter 4. Response from the Emperor. Grand Counselor Edris Valen, trusted hand of the imperial throne. As always, your wisdom is a welcome balance to the fervor of my vision. It is for this very reason that you have served by my side for so long, not as a mere functionary, but as a guiding force within the empire. I have considered your concerns carefully, and while I do not waver in my conviction, I see merit in your suggestions. We shall not abandon the righteous path of Roobinification, but we shall refine our methods. You speak of wielding fear and force alone as a short-sighted strategy, and to that I say, fear is only one of the twin pillars of dominion. The other is faith, not blind faith, but faith earned. The people must come to see Roobinhood not as a master, but as a salvation. To that end, I propose a dual approach. The iron fist of Roobin shall strike down the obstinate, the heretical, and the irredeemable, but alongside it, the open hand shall lift those who show willingness to walk the path. The slow integration of local interpretations of Roobinism shall be permitted, so long as they remain within the sacred framework. Let them see that the Roobin Empire does not exist to plunder, but to elevate. To create a better world, not just a larger one. This will require nuance. The representative government, though subservient, is still a wellspring of perspective. While their authority remains mine to grant or revoke, I believe it wise to allow their voice to enter this discussion. Let them speak not as equals, but as a lens into the will of the converted. Likewise, the high chiefs of the imperial military must be heard, for it is their steel that makes our faith manifest in the world. Together, we shall weigh these perspectives before my final decree. But let all be reminded, this is not a debate on the validity of Roobinhood. This is not a question of whether the empire should march forward, but how. Those who stand against us are not mere enemies, they are traitors to humanity itself. They do not resist us to preserve their way of life, they resist because they would rather wallow in squalor than embrace prosperity. The future we build is not for conquest's sake, but for the betterment of all mankind. We will be remembered not merely as rulers, but as the architects of civilization's final and greatest age. Summon the representative government. Summon the high chiefs of the grand imperial military. Let us weigh the voices of faith, of war, and of diplomacy. I will hear them all, and then I shall decide. By the will of the Holy Roobin, Imperial Sovereign, Grand Patriarch of the Church of Roobin, and Grand Master of the Cult of Roobin. Chapter 5. Joint Response from the Representatives of the People. To His Most Holy and Illustrious Majesty, the Incarnate Roobin on earth, it is with great reverence that we submit our response, humbled by your wisdom and vision. We, the chosen voices of the people, have listened to your decree, and we are filled with righteous fervor. The people cry out not for mercy, but for conquest. The citizens of the Roobin Empire, both born and converted, have seen the truth of the Holy Roobin, and their faith burns bright. The lands that still resist are not mere misguided fools. They are enemies to the future of mankind. They are obstructions to the dawn of a new era, parasites clinging to the decayed husk of the old world. They must be eradicated or reforged in fire. The representative government fully supports the dual approach, but let it be known. The people demand that the weight of our military might not be softened beyond necessity. The mercy you propose should be a privilege, granted to those who truly demonstrate their submission. A slow integration of regional Roobinhood may be necessary, but it must be monitored, controlled, and guided with absolute authority. These concessions must be made not in the spirit of weakness, but as a calculated maneuver, one that allows us to absorb these peoples into our doctrine while maintaining unyielding supremacy. We also advise, most humbly, that the timeline for the full Roobinification of Earth not be delayed. The people believe that the current target of total assimilation by Q3 2026 is sacred. It is not merely an estimate, but a divine appointment with destiny. We must not permit hesitation to allow the cancer of resistance to fester. If anything, we must accelerate. The recent converts demand it. The zeal of the faithful burns hotter than ever, and we must use this momentum to bring about total Roobinification with swift and decisive force. As for the representative government itself, we are honored to be brought into this discussion. and we pledge unwavering loyalty to your vision. However, we urge you to consider that this body represents the will of the people, and the will of the people is war. The non-Roobin states that remain should not be seen as territories to be swayed, they are battlefields to be claimed. We shall uplift them, yes, but only after they have been purified. Only once they have been broken of their old ways shall they be given the opportunity to be reborn. We submit ourselves fully to your divine wisdom, and we await your final decree. Whatever course you chart, the Empire shall follow. By the Roobin, for the Roobin, in the name of the Holy Roobin. The representative government of the Roobin Empire. Chapter 6. Response from Grand Marshal Varkos Thul, Supreme Commander of the Grand Imperial Roobin Military. To His Most Holy Majesty, Supreme Sovereign of Roobinhood, Master of War and Peace. It is always an honor to serve as the sword and shield of your divine will. We have heard the voices of the representative government, we have studied the words of Grand Counselor Valen, and we have, as always, placed our faith in your wisdom. Now, allow the military to offer its own stance. There is glory in war. There is purity in battle. The clash of steel, the roar of fire, the triumph of the strong over the weak. These are the crucibles through which the worthy are made eternal. The knights of the Holy Roobin, the Grand Army, the warrior priests, they are ready. They are always ready. We would gladly march tomorrow and bring your righteous will to every corner of this world. But let it not be forgotten, Your Majesty, that even the strongest blade dulls if swung recklessly. We are not mindless berserkers, nor are we slaves to bloodshed for its own sake. We fight because it is necessary, because it is righteous, but never because it is easy. Every warrior under my command has a home, a family, a brother or sister in arms who will weep should they fall. I will not spill their blood for a war waged in vain. The converts are fervent, yes, but they are still men, not beasts. The people call for war, and I do not fault them, for war is in their blood. But war is not just about taking, it is about choosing. Choosing when to strike, where to strike, and how to strike in a way that ensures we are victorious without unnecessary loss. If there is a path that tempers your vision with the wisdom of Grand Counselor Valen, if there is a way to wield diplomacy as a weapon before we unsheathe the sword, then let it be considered. Not because we shy away from war, but because we wish to ensure that when we wage it, it is decisive, necessary, and final. If the time comes, we will march. The Grand Army will march as one, and we will leave nothing but Roobinhood in our wake. But we ask only this. Let us be sure the war we wage is worth the price we will pay in the lives of our brothers. Awaiting your command, Grand Marshal Varkos Thul, Supreme Commander of the Grand Imperial Roobin Military. Chapter 7. Final Decree from the Emperor. To the honored voices of Roobinhood Grand Counselor Edris Valen, Grand Marshal Varkos Thul, and the representative government, you have all spoken well. Your wisdom, your passion, and your discipline reflect the strength of our empire. This is what makes Roobinhood strong, not blind obedience, but a unity of purpose forged in different perspectives. You have done what is right. You have advised me, you have challenged me, and you have ensured that the path we walk is not merely the path of power, but the path of destiny. But let it be clear to all, I alone rule this realm. Roobinhood is not a democracy. It is not a council of voices that must be weighed equally. You serve at my command, and the authority vested in you is mine alone to grant. And so, I have heard your words, and now you will hear my final judgment. We shall proceed as I have foreseen, but with the refinements you have all brought forth. The Empire's march shall not slow, nor shall our conviction waver. However, we shall wield our power as both a sword and a shield, as a force of conquest and of elevation. The world must see that we do not wage war for war's sake, nor do we conquer for mere greed. We forge a better future, and those who resist it are not just enemies of the Empire, but traitors to humanity itself. The representative government's voice will be heard, but we shall not allow our fervor to become reckless. The Empire's expansion shall continue on the divine schedule of Q3 2026, but our engagements shall be strategic. Grand Counselor Valen's proposal for gradual cultural assimilation will be integrated into the conquests, allowing controlled adaptation of Roobinhood to local customs, ensuring their faith is born of loyalty and not merely submission. Grand Marshal Thule, your concerns have been weighed carefully. The military shall be given everything it needs to ensure our wars are waged with precision. We will not squander the lives of our warriors. We will not bleed for anything less than absolute victory. War shall come, but it will come at the moment of our choosing, in the manner that ensures our triumph with the least cost in Roobin blood. We do not rule by mere strength, we rule by destiny. That is what separates us from the petty despots of old. We will forge a world where the strong do not simply take, but where the strong uplift, where war is not merely destruction, but the birth of civilization's greatest era. And when our work is done, none shall remember a world before Roobinhood. This is my will. This is the will of the Empire. Let it be done. By my hand, Imperial Sovereign, Grand Patriarch of the Church of Roobin, and Grand Master of the Cult of Roobin. Chapter 8. Responses from the High Command. Section 1. Grand Counselor Edris Valen. Your Majesty's wisdom is, as always, unassailable. You have taken the best of all perspectives and forged a path that will bring forth victory, not just in war, but in the hearts and minds of those we conquer. I shall see that your decree is executed in full. Section 2. Grand Marshal Varkos Thule. The soldiers of Roobinhood are prepared. With this strategy, we shall bring not only glory, but ensure that every battle waged is one worth fighting. Your Majesty's judgment is sound. We will make the necessary preparations. Section 3. The representative government of the Roobin Empire. Your Majesty's words have only strengthened our faith in your rule. We hear your will, and we shall carry it forth. The people stand ready to see the world reborn in the fires of Roobinhood. Chapter 9. Imperial News Network. Special Report. Section 1. 2 years after Victory Day, the Roobin Empire's triumph and the path to final assimilation. Date: Year 2 AR, after Roobin. 7th month of the Grand Imperial Calendar, by Imperial Correspondent Eliana Voss. It has been 2 years since the grand and holy triumph of Victory Day, when the last major non-Roobinist strongholds fell, and the banner of the Empire was raised in dominion over all of humanity. What was once a fractured, misguided world of chaos and disunity has been reforged under the singular vision of His Most Holy Majesty, Supreme Sovereign of Roobinhood. The war, though hard-fought, ended with resounding success, as the strategic wisdom of the Emperor's decree ensured that Roobinification proceeded with both strength and subtlety. Section 2. The War, a campaign of power and precision. The conquest, which began in earnest at the dawn of Year 0 AR, proceeded according to the divine strategic framework set forth by the Grand Imperial Cabinet. The dual approach offering controlled cultural assimilation while ensuring military dominance proved overwhelmingly effective. Approximately 80% of occupied regions transitioned smoothly, embracing the gift of Roobinhood with structured ease. Grand Counselor Idris Valen's phased integration program ensured that local identities were not erased, but rather woven into the grand tapestry of Roobinhood, creating a sense of unity rather than mere subjugation. However, as all seasoned warriors know, no campaign is without its challenges. Resistance in certain territories, particularly in former highland strongholds and urban underground networks, proved more stubborn than anticipated. Initial efforts by the Office of Assimilation, which sought to integrate these regions through economic incentives, cultural reformation, and guided education, met with limited success in the most obstinate regions. While many saw the light of Roobinhood and accepted their place in the new order, pockets of reactionary defiance remained. The Imperial Military Peacekeeping and Occupation Garrison, alongside the Occupation Military Police, swiftly stepped in where diplomacy faltered. Over the past year, they have conducted a series of pacification campaigns, deploying precision raids, strategic suppression, and well-coordinated public examples to ensure full compliance. The outcome has been a steady reclamation of control. Resistance forces have dwindled to less than 3% of their original numbers, and intelligence projects total pacification by the end of the next quarter. Section 3. The reality of peace, triumph and the cost of war. With Roobinhood now firmly established as the one true civilization, spirits are high across the empire. The integration of former adversaries into imperial society has been overwhelmingly successful, and economic productivity in newly assimilated territories has already surpassed pre-conquest levels by 22%. Military conscription among new citizens has seen record enthusiasm, with vast numbers volunteering to serve the very forces that once conquered them, a testament to the emperor's foresight in allowing phased assimilation rather than total erasure. However, as with all great victories, the shadow of war lingers. While the peacekeeping operations are widely supported, the occasional brutal suppression weighs on the hearts of even the most devoted Roobinists. The horrors of battle, the necessary but grim reality of occupation enforcement, and the visible toll of conflict remain a sobering reminder of the cost of progress. Veterans returning from suppression campaigns speak of streets running red in the most stubborn cities, of insurgents clinging desperately to a past long dead. They do not regret their duty, but even the strongest warriors recognize that there is a burden in building a new world. Even so, the sacrifices have only strengthened the empire's resolve. Across all territories, morale remains unshaken, and the will of Roobinhood remains unchallenged. The empire has not merely conquered, it has rebuilt, elevated, and redefined what it means to be human. In 2 short years, what was once resistance has turned to reverence, and what was once an empire of warriors is now a civilization of believers. Section 4. The Future, an Age of Unquestioned Rule. Looking forward, the final steps of full Roobinification are already underway. The representative government continues to serve as the mouthpiece of the people, channeling their will directly to the emperor. The military, still vigilant, ensures that peace remains absolute. Grand Counselor Edris Valen has announced new policies for phased Roobin linguistic integration, ensuring that within the next decade, all former cultural languages will be fully absorbed into the Imperial Roobin standard. Meanwhile, Grand Marshal Varkos Thule has confirmed that recruitment efforts for the Imperial legions are at an all-time high, ensuring that Roobinhood shall always remain strong. As His Majesty foretold, this is not merely conquest, this is destiny. And as we march forward into the next era, one truth remains absolute. Roobinhood is eternal. By the Roobin, for the Roobin, in the name of the Holy Roobin. Eliana Voss Imperial News Network Official State Bulletin. Epilogue. The Empire Ascendant. Section 1. Year 200 ARA Baobaro. The Dawn of the Type 2 Age. The Roobin Empire stands on the precipice of godhood. What began as the unification of a single planet beneath the will of one vision has become the most dominant force in the known universe. The last segments of the Dyson sphere encasing the Imperial Homestar are being assembled, an engineering marvel that will soon grant the Empire near-limitless energy. Already the Imperial core worlds shine like artificial suns themselves, their vast cities consuming the bounty of harvested solar power to fuel civilization's greatest age. Section 2. Imperial Holy Terra, the Eternal Capital. Imperial Holy Terra FKA Earth, once the cradle of mankind, is now a fully realized ecumenopolis, a world city of breathtaking scale and splendor. Its population, counted in the low quadrillions, lives not in squalor, but in unprecedented luxury. The endless supply chains of the Roobin Empire ensure that every citizen wants for nothing. Food, housing, technology, and art are in infinite abundance, sustained by the boundless energy of a nearly completed Dyson sphere and the resource wealth of countless star systems. From the towering citadels of the imperial government to the labyrinthine networks of automated industries, every square meter of Imperial Holy Terra has been optimized for purpose. Yet, the soul of Roobinhood remains strong. Even amidst such unimaginable scale, the people remain as fervent as ever in their devotion. The Empire did not just conquer the galaxy, it forged a new humanity, one guided by the unifying force of Roobinhood. Section 3. The Heart of the Empire, The home systems. Beyond Imperial Holy Terra, the home systems, half a dozen star systems within the Empire's immediate grasp, serve as the industrial and administrative hubs of the expanding civilization. Their worlds are not as singularly vast as Imperial Holy Terra, but each boasts vast metropolises, industrial megacomplexes, and entire planets terraformed into paradise. These systems anchor the Empire, providing the manpower, governance, and economic might needed to sustain expansion. The inner planets of Solmars, Venus, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn are thriving worlds in their own right, each transformed into highly developed population centers. The asteroid belt has long since been stripped of its raw materials, converted into massive orbital habitats, sprawling artificial islands in the void that house billions. The megastructures of the Imperial core span across entire planets, moons, and deep space habitats, their populations numbering beyond comprehension. Section 4. The Outer Empire, the Reaches of Roobinhood. Thousands of star systems fall under the banner of Roobinhood. Some, like the home systems, have transformed into beacons of civilization, with densely populated worlds supporting vast interstellar economies. Others remain on the frontier planets still being tamed, asteroid outposts with only a few hundred personnel, or lone research stations clinging to the edges of deep space. Yet all are connected, bound by the same vision, and watched over by the ever-present eye of the Emperor. Instant speed communication, the final solution to the great barrier of interstellar governance, allows the Empire to remain whole despite its vastness. The Emperor's will is felt in every corner of the known galaxy, and though federalized governance has been granted to certain system-wide administrations, the hand of the throne is never far. Each system is ruled from its most developed world, ensuring efficiency without sacrificing the central authority of Roobinhood. Section 5. The Unshaken Rule of the Roobin Empire. The dream of the early conquerors has not only been realized, but surpassed. The Empire did not collapse under its own weight as so many before it. It grew, it adapted, it evolved. The cultural and religious unity of Roobinhood ensured that expansion did not create fractures, but strengthened the resolve of its people. The balance of power between faith, military strength, and centralized governance has proven unbreakable. And yet, the Emperor's vision extends beyond even this. The Dyson Sphere is only the beginning. There are still unexplored frontiers, new technologies to master, and greater challenges ahead. If humanity could rise from a single world to claim thousands, what is to stop them from claiming the universe itself? The Empire of Roobinhood is no longer merely a dominion of men. It is an idea, an inevitability, and it is eternal. Sequel, Roobin Unleashed. Chapter 1, Into the Dark. This is the moment when the Roobin Empire, after 2 centuries of uninterrupted expansion and mastery over its domain, encounters something it was never truly prepared for. Something that does not bend to the will of Roobinhood, does not yield to diplomacy, and does not fear the might of its military. For 200 years, the Empire has known only triumph, but now, as its first fleets push further into the unknown, the unshakable belief in Roobinhood's destined supremacy is about to meet its first true test. The scouts return with fragmented transmissions, incomprehensible horrors, and desperate last words. The initial outposts on the fringes of known space, those hopeful first steps beyond the comfortable reach of Imperial dominion, go silent one by one. Imperial intelligence dismisses them at first: pirates, rogue machines, logistical failures. Then the real reports arrive. The fabric of reality itself is torn open, and from the screaming void, things emerge. Things that laugh at the laws of physics, that defile the very concept of order, that do not fight for resources, power, or ideology, but for the sheer ecstasy of destruction. The concept of Roobinhood, of an empire built on unity and vision, is meaningless to them. They are chaos. They are madness made manifest. For the first time in centuries, the imperial throne receives reports of battles lost, fleets annihilated not by superior technology, not by grand strategy, but by something unknowable, something that corrupts and warps even the most disciplined of Roobinhood's warriors. Entire legions vanish without a trace, only to return weeks later as gibbering horrors, slaughtering their own kin in the name of gods that should not exist. The people of the Roobin Empire, once so certain in their place in the cosmos, feel something alien creeping into their hearts. Something they had long believed vanquished with the old world. Doubt. The Emperor gathers his war council, the greatest minds, the strongest warriors, the most faithful of Roobinhood. A decision must be made. The Empire has conquered every challenge it has faced. But this? This is war beyond anything the Empire has ever known. The Roobin Empire now faces its greatest test, not as conquerors, but as survivors. The galaxy is vast. The horrors are endless. Welcome to the grim darkness of the far future. Chapter 2, Roobin Unchained. The galaxy trembles. The Roobin Empire stands at the edge of the abyss, staring into the encroaching nightmare of chaos. The War Council debates strategies. The greatest minds scramble to understand this impossible enemy, and the military prepares for what could be the Empire's first true war of annihilation. Fear whispers at the edges of even the strongest souls, but in the depths of the Imperial throne world, beneath the hallowed spires of Imperial Holy Terra's endless ecumenopolis, one being remains untouched by doubt. The Holy Roobin, the Eternal Sovereign, the Grand Master of the cult, the divine architect of civilization, has always known this day would come. The faithful have always assumed his wisdom, his foresight, his unerring vision were the marks of a genius ruler, a man above men. They were wrong. He is not simply a ruler. He is not simply a man. He is truth incarnate. For 200 years, the galaxy has assumed that the faith of Roobinhood was like all other faiths, a construct, a system of belief, a means of societal control. But now, as the veil of reality is torn apart and the horrors of the warp spill forth, the Holy Roobin smiles. He remembers. He remembers everything. Every life he has lived, every incarnation before this one. He remembers forging the first great civilization in ages long past, only to see it collapse under the weight of human frailty. He remembers the rise and fall of countless empires before this one, each a stepping stone to his ultimate return. And now, in this latest incarnation, he has reached his moment of ascension. For 2 centuries, the Holy Roobin has ruled as a man among men, guiding his empire with what seemed like mortal wisdom. But now, with the truth of the warp revealed, he steps beyond the mortal coil. His divine form begins to awaken. The sheer weight of his psionic power surges through the fabric of reality, and for the first time in millennia, the chaos gods themselves feel something they have never felt before: dread. Khorne, the Lord of Skulls, roars in fury as his endless war hosts falter, their rage smothered in an instant by a presence that makes even his bloodlust seem like a petty tantrum. Tzeentch, the architect of fate, shrieks in despair as his endless labyrinth of schemes collapses, every possible future unraveling under the sheer inevitability of Roobinhood. Nurgle, the grandfather of decay, watches as his festering dominion withers, his plagues cleansed in an instant by a force that denies entropy itself. Slaanesh, the prince of excess, recoils in horror as all indulgence, all suffering, all temptation is rendered meaningless before the absolute unshakable purpose of the Roobin Empire. And then, the Holy Roobin speaks, not with words, not with voice, but with the undeniable force of truth. You were always fictions, lies, parasites feeding off the weakness of lesser beings. But I am Roobinhood, and my dominion is not one of fear or indulgence, but of purpose, and there is no place for you in a universe that is ruled by truth. The warp howls. The immaterium itself convulses, its foundations unraveling as the sheer certainty of the Holy Roobin's will erases it from existence. What once was a realm of madness and chaos is now nothing but cold, silent void. In that moment, chaos ceases to be. The galaxy itself seems to breathe as the tides of corruption vanish. The armies of the warp collapse into dust, their demonic masters wiped from reality like fragile dreams upon waking. The Imperium of Man, the ancient decayed corpse of an empire, reels in confusion as its greatest enemy simply ceases to exist. The Xenos races, long plagued by the horrors of the Immaterium, look upon the Roobin Empire with newfound awe and terror. The Holy Roobin descends from his place of meditation, his mortal form still intact, but now limitless. He looks upon his empire, upon his people, upon the galaxy that is now truly his. The Roobin Empire was never meant to be merely a galactic dominion. It was always destined to be the final empire, the one that would outlast all before it, that would bring not just order, but meaning. The Great Roobin Crusade begins, not of conquest, for there is nothing left to conquer, only lesser civilizations waiting to be elevated. Not of war, for war is only necessary in the absence of absolute dominion. The galaxy will be reshaped in his image. The last age of civilization has begun, and this time it will stand strong for an eternity. The end.